Good afternoon and welcome to the Scottish Student Sports Women in Sport panel. We are hosting today's conversation as part of Scottish Women and Girls in Sport Week using the hashtag #SheCanSheWill. I am so delighted today to be joined by two great volunteers of Scottish Student Sports and two friends of mine, I'm very happy to say. First up, we have Georgia Moran. Georgia is RYA Scotland's Regional Development Officer and Scottish Student Sports Women's lead. And she's the next sports president from the Edinburgh Napier. And fun fact, she is also a singer-songwriter. Hi, Georgia.
Hi,
welcome. Next up, we also have Laura Pilkington, a fourth-year student from Edinburgh Napier University, para swimmer, Sports Scotland and Scottish Disability Sports Young Person Sport panelist, Triple S's Disability Equality Lead, Fit for Girls tutor, and most recently, an SDS board member, as well as last night being awarded Sports Scotland's Young Volunteer of the Year, which is an amazing award. So Laura, welcome and a huge well done for last night's award.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you feel about that? How was it being on stage last night?
Oh, it's quite nerve-wracking. So I was first up. Claire was like, right, we'll get you first up, you'll be fine. And I was like, okay. So they asked me 3 questions, but I think it went well and I got kind of the message I wanted to get across about inclusion. So it was good. It was a good night.
Amazing. And I sadly was not there in person to see the others, but was there others in contention with the other faces, or was it just the one person that was announced?
So they just invite the winners. So there was 13 different awards, and they just invite the winners for the celebration of the night.
Oh, I tell you what, if I'd have known earlier, I would have just gotten my seat there. That's amazing. No, that sounds like a brilliant start to the evening and well deserved. And obviously I've read out your entire volunteering list and what you do, and I don't think, and yeah, there's no one more deserving of this young person's award. And I don't know how you wear all these hats, Laura. I don't know how you do it. And study at the same time, which is so brilliant to have a current student on our equality steering group and part of today's discussion. So welcome both. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciated. And I was going to kick off with a question that usually is asked on the Scottish Student Sport podcast about a first sporting event live. And I put a little twist because it's Women and Girls in Sport Week. I'm wondering if you can give me a female. I'm wondering already, was that the idea that you had? But obviously, if you've got another one, a possible women's live event too. So I won't talk anymore. Georgia, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I've got a really easy one. I managed to bag myself a ticket to the Women's Euros final at Wembley. Obviously, England won it. And yeah, I mean, anyone that's spoken to me about it, you know, I was absolutely buzzing after it. It was unbelievable, you know. With these types of events, you know, you just go and you just think, oh, what's it going to be like? You know, obviously you're rooting for England, and I was cheering on the girls, like, although being a Scotland fan and resident, you know, still cheering on the England women, of course. But yeah, the atmosphere was just unlike anything I'd ever been to, and you know, I do think that even though England won it and the atmosphere was incredible, I do think that the atmosphere would have been good either way. You know, it was a great game. But yeah, seeing everyone in the crowd and like all the chanting and all the singing and just that was just monumental for women's sport in general. You know, it's monumental for football, and you know, all the young girls and boys getting involved in football at a young age at a grassroots level out just because of that competition is huge. And obviously it focuses in on women, and that's what we need for the sport. But you know, I just think for women's sport across the board, it's just massive. You know, it was absolutely incredible. And as I say, I was very fortunate to get a ticket off my friend, and it was just, we had the best day, we had the best weekend. It was just amazing.
That is awesome. And I watched the game myself. I'm sure I don't know how many millions tuned in to watch it like others, but yeah, I can't imagine what being like. It was amazing to watch on the screen, never mind to be in person, Georgia. So I'm very jealous you got to be there in person, but also I couldn't agree more. Monumental game and monumental tournament, I think. It's been a monumental summer, and we'll come on to that later as well. Laura, have you got a live event for us that you can tell?
Yeah, it's not when I was in person, but I remember watching it on TV and it stuck with me for a few years now. So it was in 2014 at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, and one of my friends, Erin Davies, was her like she was the youngest member of Team Scotland, so she was 13 at the time, and this was her first sort of international debut, and she won a bronze medal just out of nowhere, and I just got so emotional. I was just so proud of her to like know how hard she worked for that and how like happy she was to get the bronze medal. Like I just remember seeing all the photos afterwards and she had the biggest smile and it was just such a nice event to watch.
Yeah, that's amazing. Seeing a friend and someone that you admire winning something like that, especially, I mean, at her age 13, wow, that's absolutely incredible. Yeah, amazing. Well, Brian, thank you so much both for those great examples and two very topical areas, the Euros and the Commonwealth Games, which again we'll come back to. We'll come back to very soon. The next question I have for you both is about this week and what it means to you personally, professionally, a little bit of both. I can kind of kick us off a little bit as the kind of leader of the kind of content for Scottish Student Sport. I mean, every week is Women and Girls in Sport Week, really it is. I think especially within the student sector, how many female students are active is absolutely brilliant, and not just active, but also leading and being very visible in this kind of sporting space on campus. And I think what we do so well within student sport, and hopefully you both can kind of agree to this or not, is that we do such great peer-to-peer work, and that's what makes student sport work so well, is the fact that your friends are running the sessions. It's not somebody that's kind of in that kind of authority space. But I won't steal your thunder, guys. So I'm going to pause and I'll let you guys answer what this week means to you. Laura, should I come to you first this time?
Okay. Yeah, no, Scottish Women's Sport Week's really important to me. I've been doing a lot of the comms of Scottish Ability Sport and trying to organise that, and it's just great to see like the female leaders and players, and I think it's trying to encourage people to get involved in sport who are women. But I was at the branch conference of Scottish Ability Sport the other weekend. Abby and Gemma led an amazing workshop on girls in sport, and it's talking about like the double discrimination for people with disability and if they're female. So it's like there's so many barriers for them getting involved in sport and sort of how to work within the branches to overcome them. So I think it's so important to have this week to push on that and to get all the partners working together to try and make a change, and hopefully something that continues not just this week but for the next year and forever, to be honest.
Here. Couldn't agree more. And that's why we're so happy, Laura, to have you as our lead in this area to make sure that and I think hopefully you agree that the kind of all the equality leads work together and on this space lets us that we're not just focusing on one area, it's lots of areas at the same time. So yeah, absolutely love that. Georgia, how about you?
Yeah, I think you know, going all the way back to my Napier days, which seem longer than they should be now away. You know, being a sports president or a sabbatical officer for the couple of years that I did it, you know, we focused in on this week, and we focused in on weeks like this and campaigns like this, and that was, we all rallied together. All the unis got behind each other, got behind each other's projects, got behind Scottish Student Sports projects. You know, we all really mucked in and did some really cool work together. And you know, I think for me that week, that theme continues for this week for me in a with my Scottish Student Sport hat on and all the stuff that we do together, Eilidh, and working with Laura and the rest of the leads and things, but also, you know, from work I work with in the governing body space now, which is different, but so many similarities but very different. And you know, it's interesting to see we all do the same stuff. We're all trying to achieve the same goal, which is more people in sport, really, and more people impacting and benefiting from what we see sport can do. And you know, this week obviously focuses in on women and girls, and that's for me is just, it's just huge. You know, there's within the sport that I work in, I work for the governing body for sailing and windsurfing, and kind of boating is what we kind of go by, and not being a sailor or anything like that myself, playing hockey and kind of football and things like that, you know, team sports that you play on a grass pitch, very different. You know, coming into this space and seeing the effects that different sports can have on women and girls, and it's just there's so much exciting work happening within the student space as well as kind of governing bodies, local authorities, you know, sports sector as a whole. But yeah, the week for me is super important. These types of, you know, campaign weeks or project weeks or whatever you want to call it, it just, everyone rallies together and does the same stuff, celebrating the same people, you know. Role models are plastered all over social media, and you know, we talked about, you know, the Euros and stuff like that, and I know we'll come on to that, but that kind of role model idea, you know, a lot of that comes out. That's kind of the key themes from this week as well. Yeah, it's super important. Love it.
Can't get myself off mute. No, thank you, Georgia. That's, yeah, can't agree more. And I think, yeah, it's funny going back to the president days, as you said, because initially, and for all the kind of current presidents that might be watching this, or staff that might be working now, the logos and the kind of she can, she will information that's shared out from SSS has in the last couple of years, that was all initially Georgia's kind of plan and idea, and it's great to see it continuing and come to fruition, and really taken on arms and legs, hasn't it, as well? And we know that there's a bigger picture here that we're kind of aware of, and others in the sector are aware of, and the she can, she will model definitely has room to be even better than it already is, which is so exciting, seeing as how great it's already doing in this, how brilliant this week is. So thank you for that. And also Sport Hour on Monday night, for those that were part of it, was amazing. I loved I had my laptop open for the Scottish Student Sport and my phone for my own stuff, so it was fun doing two accounts at once. But anyway, I digress. So the next topic I have for you both is about visibility, Georgia, the kind of what you were just mentioning there, and the kind of summer of sport. As many of you may know, the theme for this week is partnerships and visibility, two areas of work that Scottish Student Sport do an awful lot of work in. Partnerships are part of every single conversation, probably of every single day, just because of the nature of what we do. And visibility is key for our students, because because of how social media works and the fact that we require visibility to be seen. So I was going to ask you both about the summer of sport that's been happening, and what visibility means to you. Laura, want to go first on this one?
Yeah, that's fine. No, I think the summer sport's been incredible, and it's great to see so many female role models. And I think not just seeing them participate at that high level, but seeing how they got there and their stories behind it, because it's not always an easy road, but people find a way to get through things in the support of others. And I think sport is great, not just at that high performance level as well, but that participation level. So I think it's seeing the visibility of both sides of the story and looking at women across all sporting and physical activity.
Amazing. Yeah, it's been, and that's what's so inspirational about the Commonwealth Games as well. It's just the diversity on show, not just from the sports that are on display and how many different sports you can see in one day, but the people there. And I think one tweet that stuck out to me in Sport Hour was Bowles's role model tweet of the gold medal winners, the doubles pair. I think the oldest gold medalist that Team Scotland's had. It's just absolutely incredible. Yeah, what an absolute highlight. Georgia, how about yourself? The summer of sport reflection and kind of impact that you think it's going to have on the kind of coming.
So I think for me, like the thing that always stands out to me, and my colleagues at RYA will laugh when I say this if they ever find themselves watching this, is my go-to phrase is always that you can't be what you can't see. Me and you use it all the time, Eilidh. You know, I'm pretty sure you're the one that probably put me onto it years back when we started working together. You know, whoever made that up, and you know, I know there's different abbreviations and different wordings of it out there, but you know, the core principle of it is, you know, role models and faces is the most important thing. And I think this summer and over the past couple of years, there's obviously been a lot. Like obviously one of the biggest, you know, women's tournaments, especially for us in Scotland, was the women's like televised, I suppose, the Women's Football World Cup in 2019. You know, the coverage that Scotland got, because we actually made it, was amazing. You know, and hopefully we can do that. A couple of games coming up in the next week, so let's cross your fingers and toes, everyone. But yeah, like the lead up from that tournament to like the Euros, and obviously I'm talking about football because I'm a huge football fan, and I've played it throughout my life, and you know, the television coverage and the media coverage and everything from TikTok to Sky Sports, you know, they were everywhere. They were they're still everywhere. You know, the Pepsi Max adverts have still got Leah Williamson, the England's captain's face, all over the bus stops. She's still there, you know, and that for me is super important. And, you know, going out of football, you know, thinking of the Commonwealth Games, you know, my sport's hockey. I play hockey every week. I still play club, like all that kind of stuff. And I played throughout Napier, hence why I got to this role and to do the Napier stuff. But, you know, watching that at the Commonwealth Games, you know, there was cricket, there was all the cricket World Cup or whatever it was. There was the Rugby League World Cup for the women over the summer. Obviously, all the athletics championships. There was just an absolute ridiculous amount of women's sport happening, and it was really nice to see them creeping into the channels that the men's dominate, and the men still dominate. You know, that is going to be the case for a hell of a long time. But you know, it's starting to get there, and it just makes you so excited about, you know, 10, 20 years time. You know, who knows what it'll look like. You know, our women's sport could be, you know, it could dominate. Who knows? Let's shoot for the stars, you know. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been an incredible summer, and you know, I'm gutted that some of these tournaments are, you know, the Euros ending and all that type of things. It's sad to see it go, but it's just like over the next couple of years, these tournaments will go again, and obviously they'll be hosted elsewhere, and it's just how we see that as a nation in Scotland and as the UK, what that looks like when it's not in England, you know. So that's going to be quite an interesting thing to see as well.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. So well put. And you're right. It is a total bittersweet feeling when it's all finished, isn't it? You're like, oh no, that was so brilliant. Let's not have that as a one-time thing. But I think that's what's so brilliant, is it makes the audience hungry for more. And that's what we rely upon, isn't it? Is that, and like obviously the Scottish Women's Football League is like, you know, pushing on that motive. Like, okay, you're really wanting to see more, you know, women's football. Here's our tickets. Here's our campaign now, sponsored by Sky Sports, which is absolutely incredible and huge. And that backing and investment leads to visibility, which I think sometimes is overshadowed. Like how important that investment is, and not just money, but it's we believe in you. We believe that this sport and this group can inspire and wants to be watched. I mean, after the Euros in the summer, who would ever now say nobody wants to watch women's football? I mean, I don't think anyone, because we have the evidence of the numbers of who tuned in. But if it wasn't televised, if it wasn't, how would we ever know that? You know, and that's why data investment and giving people a chance is so important. So thank you, G. That struck something in me there. Much appreciated for bringing that up. Honestly, Georgia and I have calls often about women's sport, and we go on tangents, so I'll try my best not to do that, but thank you both. And also we have
I was just saying, me and you could be here for days chatting about all this, probably weeks, months. We could just keep going.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm not sure if my Wi-Fi is okay. I think it is. I'm going to keep going. But yes, and we also have the Rugby Women's Cup, World Cup, coming up this weekend, starting this weekend, which is super exciting, all the way out in New Zealand. So the times are not the most friendly for us over in the UK, but great reason to get up early and get some early bird catches the worm stuff done. Absolutely, thank you for that. Next question I've got for you guys is about the kind of visibility area and how good student sport is within that, in terms of how much social media is utilised and how great students are at, you know, what is it really, adhering to their audiences, which is other students. Any top tips you have for visibility and student sport? Anything that you think is done really well? Any areas that can be improved? Laura, how about you?
Yeah, I think the Scottish Student Sport kind of engages people on social media really well. Is like, that's the thing that students are probably spending too much time on, is social media. And I think just having that connection with each other is really important. But I think it's just trying to reach the people that don't sort of get involved in sport is probably something that we all have to work on. And I think it's when you're involved in the world of sports, you can't understand sometimes why people don't want to get involved in sports. So it's trying reaching those other people which might be involved in sport, but maybe not wanting to be a participant, but wanting to be a coach, official, a leader. There's so many different roles within sport. And I think there's so many different students with so many different skills. It's just trying to get them all involved because it has such a big impact on them.
Absolutely agree. The hard to reach groups are hard to reach for a reason, and figuring out why that is and doing something about it, not just going, oh well, that's tough. Yeah, I mean that's too difficult to do. We'll just figure out that problem and let's try and solve it. Absolutely, Laura. Georgia?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I was kind of going in a different direction, so I'll touch on that as well. But yeah, I think, you know, we all, as I said right at the start, you know, within the sector, we're all working towards the same goal. You know, we're all trying to achieve the same thing, and we all need to reach out to these groups of people that aren't involved in sport. You know, it's, you know, 9 times out of 10, getting involved in sport requires some amount of confidence, some amount of access, you know, someone that's going to take you there, someone that's going to push you there, you know, and not everyone has that. And, you know, we go back to what I said about you can't be what you can't see, you know, and not everyone sees themselves in, and even over the summer, you know, there still is gaps within women's football, you know, the Commonwealth Games, you know, that making sure that the athletes look like everyday communities and all the communities that we sit in as people and residents of Scotland. So there's a lot of work to be done there. But I suppose what the direction I was going was, you know, thinking back to when I was a SAP, within student sport, there is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eilidh, because I might be wrong on the numbers, but women, there are more involved in student sport. And, you know, there's plenty of reasons that you could say, you know, more women go to uni, blah, 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 blah. But I do think that the visibility and the kind of leadership and the role models that come from student sport are amazing, because the majority of them are women. You know, you look at Triple S staff, you look at the sabbaticals, you look at, yeah, exactly. You look at all the sports unions, like there was a huge amount of equality there. And again, I'm just saying, and I say this as everything I talk about when it comes to EDI is around, you know, there's still gaps, there's still huge gaps, definitely within the kind of ethnically diverse groups or people from the LGBT community. You know, there's still gaps, but I do believe that within student sport, there's been a huge amount of work done by Eilidh, by the rest of us, by volunteers, by the rest of the Triple S team to make sure that women are very much involved in all the decision making of the sector. And all the work, all the projects, all those really important leadership roles, like and again, obviously the staff roles. You know, there is a huge amount of women there. It's amazing. It was huge. You know, I'm pretty sure one of my SAB years there was more women sabbatical officers. I think it could have even been both years. Who knows? But you know, there was a huge amount of equality there from that side of things. Yeah, I think that was a bit of a whirlwind answer to your question, but that's kind of the point I wanted to get across.
No, it was a good one. There's a good few things mentioned in there. Firstly, yeah, the active student population last year was predominantly female. Obviously, this year we're not too sure because it's just started, but we'll probably bank on it probably being more females taking part compared to men. But obviously we think that the population of female students is higher than male anyway, but we're not going to complain about having that, are we? But as we said in the earlier comment, there's no such thing as having too many people or women involved in sport. We can always have more. So yeah, we're never gonna bash that door down. And what you were mentioning there about the work we do, thank you very much for all the kind words. Much appreciated, and you're a big part of, you both have a big part of that happening, and the voices, the leadership, and the promotion. That's definitely a team job. But sport does have a lot of work to do, Georgia. You're right, the gaps exist and they are still there, and it's a team effort by the whole of sport in Scotland to make sure that we're closing in on all those gaps. And yeah, it's not as if one's more important than the other. We need to try and do it in a way that encompasses everyone and brings everyone with us. Yeah, and obviously society is a little bit ahead of sport, I would say, in terms of this area of work, but there's nothing stopping us catching up. So let's keep going. I love it. Brilliant. Next thing I was going to ask you both, we've again talked about this within our group. And again, I might have just already kind of touched on this, but any other things you want to add, please feel free. But Women and Girls in Sport Week is super important, obviously. I would probably say that within Scottish student sport and certain groups, there's probably more diverse stories than others in terms of we want to make sure that people for marginalised women, people in marginalised groups feel included within the space. And I think our first tweet of the week kind of puts that out quite nicely to say that, you know, we're aware that some women more than others feel included within sport, and here's why. So I've kind of I've titled this section Inclusive Feminism, but I'm aware that that's not necessarily what we want, maybe how we would identify with it. But how important is it to have diverse stories within these weeks, and not just to have them focused on the person who has always had access to sport, or the woman who's had access to sport and always kind of those that are particularly challenged. Georgia, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is a huge topic for me. You know, being the women's lead, there's a connotation there that isn't actually so inclusive, and we've chatted about that, Eilidh, haven't we, about, you know, women and girls as a phrase or as a word actually in some communities and to some people can be quite, you know, not inclusive. And although that is a small minority of people and women identifying people out there, but yeah, it's interesting. I think, you know, for me, it's all about intersectionality. We talk about that quite a lot in terms of inclusion stuff and EDI stuff, you know. Throughout sport and throughout society, really, over forever, has been around, there's been a huge focus on women, just really at the heart of and core of EDI work. And, you know, that's been amazing, because I think back to all, it was when, you know, the charities and like Oscar and things like that came out about, you know, diversifying your board. That was a huge one throughout the sector of sport, but also just everyone around. Make sure that your board is inclusive. It cannot just be, you know, white men. And, you know, there was a huge push there around getting women onto the boards, and that's absolutely incredible. You know, that was a huge step for sport, but also society. And now it's we need to put in that extra work, and, you know, that next step comes for, you know, the other groups that we've all mentioned. You know, I think, yeah, it's a funny one, because for us as student sport, and for me at RYA, you know, we this week have been focusing in on a bit more kind of project / issue based content for Women and Girls in Sport Week. You know, we've not focused in on athletes, or, you know, we've done a bit of that and a bit of kind of that role modeling stuff like that, but we've been focusing in actually on period poverty and working with Hey Girls, and that's been a bit of a baby of mine that I've been working on within my organization to try and, you know, really get started. And it's been amazing to be able to launch it and stuff like that. But it was a different angle, because that really does identify to the majority of women. And it's just about making sure that whether we're speaking about role models, or we're speaking about people, or we're speaking about athletes, or we're speaking about, you know, staff like us, you know, we just make sure that everyone is in there. Everyone has to be in there. And, you know, there's a long way to go for, you know, transgender people inclusion, for non-binary people inclusion, for all of those groups of people that are still very much not at the forefront and not at the core of EDI for some places. And, you know, for us here as student sport, and for all governing bodies, and hopefully, and the sports sector, that those people are at the core of what we're trying to, you know, that what I keep saying that we're trying to achieve. But yeah, there's a long way to go, but I quite like your inclusive feminism, because I personally identify as a feminist, and I think all women should. But hey, I'm not going to push my views onto everyone too much. But yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Georgia. I'm not going to touch on it, because I'm going to let Laura kind of come in and reply. But you mentioned earlier, Laura, double discrimination, as you kind of put it. And I suppose that kind of double whammy is probably feels you in a lot of your work, a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's, as well as being underrepresented because of your disability, and having the opportunities because you're female as well, it can be quite hard. What Georgia was talking there about, like the period poverty, even within that, when you go into disabled toilets, they don't have period products there, which is just feeling like you're forgotten about, and no one wants to feel like they're forgotten about. And I think that's why visibility for everyone during Scottish Women's Sport Week is so important, because it's the people that get access to sport every day. Like, that's good, but we need to represent the people that don't have that access, and how do we get them involved within sport? Because if you go on social media and you just see someone it's not like you, then you'll be like, oh, but does that mean I can't do it? And it's kind of selling the stories about how people can get involved within sport. Because for me, with my disability, like when I first got involved within swimming, when I went to my first disability competition, I was like, oh my goodness, like so many people that have got disability here. I don't feel like the only one here. And I think that's such a big impact on my life. And if people go online in Scottish Women's Girls in Sport, we can see women like them or transgender women like them online. It makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And thank you for the call out there of any disabled toilets that don't have period products in them. So shout out to anyone that's in charge of that to make sure that that's not happening in your facility or in your space, or feel free to call out those that maybe aren't, or at least maybe make them aware of that. So thank you, Laura. I always appreciate a bit of a call to action. But yeah, you're absolutely bang on. It's so important to have those who don't feel like they can take part in sport, that representation. And at the end, we're all in the space of getting more people active, and those that aren't already active aren't for a reason. And if we can use these messages and this message to capture certain groups who are underrepresented, then let's just do that. Let's go ahead and ask them how we can be better. Let's involve them in the conversation rather than trying to preach to anyone. Let's involve the community that we're trying to help and trying to get more active. So thank you for that both very much. So my next, I feel like this is what we just touched on. It's so funny. I feel like they're all quite leading on to each other. But what is there still to do? I think obviously we've done, and as you kind of alluded to, Georgia, there's been great movements. There's been great progress in women's sport, especially in terms of investment and visibility in the last couple of years. I think post-COVID, things really took a big turn, and we realised that actually this is a big opportunity. And at the end of the day, a big moneymaker, potential moneymaker for professional sport to really boost. And there's certain governing bodies who are doing incredible work that we absolutely should be giving a shout out. But what is there still to do? I feel like that could be anything. So I'm going to leave we both with that. So George, I'll come back to you. What is there still to do, in your opinion, in the sporting space?
A lot. I think this is how I would start that. Like, as I've said, there's been some, and you just said Eilidh there's been some huge movements for EDI and the space of sport in general, and society even, in the world. I mean, there's still a hell of a lot to do throughout the world, and that's a completely huge, even bigger conversation, of course. But we'll not get into that, because we will be here for weeks on end thinking about that and how we're going to change the world. But yeah, and I take that phrase again about how we're going to change our world. And I think on a larger scale, there's a huge, for the sports sector in general, governing bodies, student sport, blah blah blah. There's a huge amount of work that needs to be done, and that is everything from collaborating on projects to embedding this type of language and EDI language into strategy, into processes, into policies, that kind of thing. And especially from being with my governing body hat on, there's a huge amount of stuff going on there, which is so exciting. But from a student sport point of view, I think for me, Eilidh, right back at the start when we started exploring some of this, you mentioned the she can, she will stuff, we sat down and we thought, right, and we've alluded to it, student sport has more women in it. Fantastic. However, there's still sports where there's within student sport where there's no women even remotely involved in the sport decision making committees, athlete, anything. And it's about, for us as student sport volunteers and students and staff within Triple S is, you know, we need to, and we've done work on this in the past around kind of football, and, you know, we were working with golf and stuff like that, Eilidh, and, you know, continuing that work to make sure that women are starting to see more women and involved in these sports that are very much on the flip side of what student sport actually looks like. That's for me is kind of the main thing. And you know, there's so many things I could say. You know, there's a lot of, you know, that unconscious bias thing for me, and I know we haven't even touched on that word at all, but you know, that's a huge conversation. But unconscious bias, we're all guilty of it. Even when you work in this space, you're still guilty of it, and it's about us as a sport body, as a sport sector, you know, making sure that we are challenging that all the time. And within unis, you know, I did 4 years at uni and then did 2 on top of that as a SAB, and I know what uni life is like. I know what sport uni life is like, and there's things there that, you know, need work and need changing, and, you know, Triple S and Bucks are leading the way and on that kind of side of things, which is really exciting. But yeah, I could go on for days. There's lots to do, but, you know, I think the main things for me are, as a student sector, looking at those sports where the inequalities are a lot higher, but also just embedding these types of conversations into absolutely everything that we do. You know, whether you're the hockey president trying to run a project for, I don't know, a very small scale project to, you know, Triple S running a national project, you know, everyone in between needs to embed this language, this kind of everything that we've talked about, you know, myself, Laura and Eilidh have talked about today, at the heart of everything that you're up to within the student space. And it's already on the up, and it always has been, but, you know, there's room to grow and lots to do, and it's exciting. It's an exciting sector and story to be part of, because, you know, 20 years down the line, who knows what it's going to look like.
Who knows? But I know that Georgia Moran will be there with like, here we go. No, thanks, Georgia, that's amazing. And I think you're right with I agree with you, absolutely. And then the ending is there's so much potential, there's so much to do, that it's just a very exciting space to be in, because every day is different and every day there's progress, or at least we try to. That's amazing. Laura, how about you? What is there still to do?
As Georgia was saying, there's probably a lot to do and a lot to say around this sector, but like a couple of things that kind of come to mind for me is probably like the representation and visibility, because when I sort of spoke to someone at uni and they were talking about the rugby team, it was just assumed that it was the men's team they were talking about. And I was like, oh, I know someone on the team. And they didn't realise that I was talking about the women's team, and it was just that assumption that it's always about the men, it's always about them in sport. And how can we change that? Because the women's sport is just as important as men's, and it should just be assumed that in uni, when you're talking about rugby or football, you're talking about the men's team. So it's having that conversation and trying to change those attitudes. And as well as I was thinking about like coaches and like staff that are working with females, and it's just looking at like menstruation and being able to have that conversation, because I feel it can be something that female athletes can be scared to talk about if they've got like a male coach, and male coaches can feel the same. And it's having that mutual sort of understanding, because I think it'd just be a more comfortable environment for everyone. It's like to break that sort of stigma and have those conversations. It's like an everyday normal thing.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that, Laura. I think and we've all been there when you've meant to say, or you say, oh, that's a football game on, then you turn it on and it's a women's game, and they go, oh, I thought that was the men playing. You're like, no, please don't. You're like, please don't be that person, especially with family. Gosh, if any of my family are watching this, I'd be like, here, there she is. I'm like, come on, guys, we can do better. But no, you're right. But that goes back to the visibility and the investment. If it's not on regularly, where we see people, we're going to assume it's the others, aren't we? So, and then that trickles all the way down to community, like you said, Laura, for people to go, oh, that rugby player, oh, what that guy, oh no, that's talking about that girl. Oh, classic. Classic, the lights went off. And there you go. Hello, darkness, my old friend. But yeah, that's a really important point and goes right back to what we were saying earlier in terms of investment, role models, and getting men, especially talking about women's sport. I totally agree, Laura. Yeah, and that's completely distracted me. That light going on is just throwing me right off. But it's okay, because we're on to a couple of questions we got via Instagram from who I believe are students who follow us in Scottish Student Sport. The first one is from a club president asking, how do we help get inactive students active? And I suppose I'm imagining this person coming from, we've tried social media, we've tried pushing our messaging out, but if they don't follow sport accounts, or they don't enter the gym, or they don't enter the space that you're working in, they won't see that, will they? So Georgia, from your opinion and from your development officer role, how do you think, or what can you give to that?
Yeah, I think it's a hard one, because in all walks of sport, we talk about getting the inactive active, but we still continue to post that on our own social medias, our own channels. We go to the same people. It's a never-ending cycle. We're all guilty of it. I think for me, actually, going back to my club president days, way back, we obviously engaged in everything, all the freshers fairs and obviously welcome fairs, and I know the wording's changed and things, the sport fairs, all that kind of side of things. And obviously without things like social media and word of mouth and those types of events, going above and beyond and extra to that would be, we, and again, going to my sabbatical days as well, we targeted stereotypical courses that would never be involved in the sports union, and we just went up to them and chatted to them, and it was interesting having those conversations with people that have never played sport. Were those kids in school that thought, nah, PE is not for me, I'm not doing that, blah blah blah, and it was all about, for me, when I was in that role, was around trying to get across why sport is so important to me, so that hopefully it rubs off on them and they think, oh wow, actually that sport could potentially be that to me too. And yeah, it's a hard one. It's just about finding people that are willing to listen, but you really getting your passion across, and your passion's your best friend, and all this type of work. For me, when I was sports president, my biggest manifesto point was around, I had easy access to sport throughout my life. I got involved at uni in sport through hockey. I did a music degree, which was very different types of people, different groups of people that I was friends with at uni and was involved with. And it was all around, I want you, so some random first year that's just come and has never played football, never played sport before, I want you to experience uni sport the way I have, because uni sport was amazing. It was absolutely the core of my course at my 4 years at uni. And I absolutely loved my actual course, don't get me wrong, but the sport was huge for me at university. So yeah, long-winded answer, but your passion is your best friend, and just go and sing that from the rooftops, and people will see why you're involved in what you're involved in, and hopefully they'll come along and they'll have a try.
Amazing. Wise words from a wise president, or ex-president, shall I say. Love that. Laura, how about you? How do we help get inactive, or who we perceive as inactive students active?
Yeah, I think probably the main thing is to look at the sort of social element of physical activity and try and get groups together, maybe not even just going on walks and stuff, and seeing while you're doing that, talking to them, because I feel like you need to directly ask them why are you inactive, because otherwise you're just kind of guessing, because as I said earlier, we're involved in sport, we don't know what it's like not to have sport in our life, so we really need to talk to them and talk to the people, like Georgia was saying, the courses that there's not stereotypically people involved within sport. It's great to sort of reach out with them, and I think the social element of sport is such a big factor, and if you link with that, is so important, and then it can progress from being social to some people wanting to go into fitness classes and wanting to go and play sport.
Absolutely. From that first interaction, it just goes from there, doesn't it? And it can grow arms and legs, and you can get involved in absolutely anything. Thank you, Laura. Very wise words again, indeed. Thank you very much, both. We'll try not to take too much more of your time, so do quick fire in the next 2 questions that I've got. I'm currently injured and can't play my sport. What else do you recommend that I do in this time to keep involved? And I think they also kind of mentioned how kind of it's been tough mentally for them as well during this time of injury. So how can they stay in the sport if they can't play? First buzzer wins.
I'll go quick. No, I find that so hard. Like I've had so many injuries within sport, and I think it's trying to stay connected with the people that you're involved with. So go out to training, help out, do these sorts of things. And depending on your injury, like if you've injured your sort of upper body, can you do lower body stuff? If you vice versa, sort of thing. So it's kind of looking at what you can do and just staying involved with your team, because your team can be such a big part of your life, and you don't want to lose that connection while you're injured.
Yeah, and it comes back to that element of social, Laura, that you were talking about, make sure that they're inclusive socials, not just for the kind of obvious reasons that we've probably discussed in the wider student body anyway, but also for those that are injured, maybe can't walk all that way or can't do X, Y, and Z, can't run and jump about, for example. Georgia, anything to add on the I'm injured, what do?
Yeah, I think similar to Laura, just stay involved. I think getting involved in the committee is huge. It's amazing for your CV, but it's also amazing for your enjoyment levels, your student satisfaction at uni, which is a lovely phrase that all the unis use for their satisfactions and all that. But yeah, just volunteer, turn up, just don't stop, yeah, I try to do quickly, but yeah, it's hard. I totally understand it's hard, you feel a bit isolated, but just keep showing up. Like, I know, it's cold nights and things like that if you play an outdoor sport, but just keep going, show face, go to the socials, just keep going, and that your team will be welcoming you back with open arms as soon as you can play again. But yeah, I suppose a bit different to Laura's answer, just volunteer, get involved in the committee, just do a job, randomly pick up one of the committee jobs. You never know where you'll end up. You might end up sat on this women in sport panel, because that's how it started for me.
Volunteering is the way forward, as Laura Pilkington is also aware. But yeah, I totally agree. Thank you, Georgia, for that. One other couple of things I would mention is also just other roles within sport, coaching, refereeing. Obviously, qualifications can be gained within that, and again, brilliant for your CV. So for anyone that's injured or looking to have other roles within sport, or even it's just kind of fallen in love with playing a particular sport, there's always these officiating, coaching opportunities as well, and it can be paid work to anything temporarily. Have I frozen?
You froze a little bit, but I think we got the end of your chat. So yes, cool. Coaching, refereeing, all of that, loads of, there's so many different things to do. Thanks,
Georgia, much appreciated. Yeah, temporary unstable, fantastic news. Last one I've got for you. I'm a student in high school, I'm a pupil in high school, should I say, and I'm interested in playing a sport at my potential new or next university. Have you got any recommendations on what that process is like? Basically, just give I suppose a bit of a reflection for you guys on how that transition was for you.
Yeah, I'll just jump in, Laura, and I'll let you finish us off. I think for me, thinking back, obviously doing a music degree, I was solely kind of focused on that, but I always knew I was going to do hockey at least at uni. And again, going back to what we said about kind of, we are the people that have got involved in sport, so it's kind of, tongue in cheek us saying this kind of thing, but I was confident enough to join. I think I joined like 5 or 6 sports and societies in first year. Like, I was that person. I got involved in everything from hockey to drama to all the music stuff, and snow sports. It was great. But yeah, I think going back into what I did was just I messaged their social pages, found them online, given them a message, turned up to the first session and just threw myself in. And I know that can be a very scary and vulnerable position to put yourself in, especially as a 17-year-old. I was a young student when I started. I was 17. You know, a lot of uni life can focus around, you know, things that potentially as a 17-year-old you can't get involved in. But I'll tell you this now, you can be involved in sport without, you know, that, and you know, there's a space for everyone. But yeah, just message them and turn up. And obviously, you know, we talked about welcome fairs and all that kind of stuff. Just go, and I know, as I said, it can be a scary moment walking up to that table and saying, hello, I play this sport, you know, but just try as hard as you can to do that, because it will change your life.
Laura, how about you?
I'll just quickly add on to that. I think Georgia basically covered it all, but I think it's just going with what you feel most comfortable with. If you want to go to the fair and speak to them, or if you'd rather do it online, email, or if you know someone else in the team, it's just get in contact however you feel. But everyone's so welcoming and so nice. It's like a great community to be a part of, so go for it.
Love that. Ending on go for it. Amazing. Yeah. Give it a go. And I think the university and college staff who are there to support, they're always open to questions, emails, phone calls. They want to have you involved and will help you as much as they can. So there's nothing but help and support to help anyone who wants to get involved. And yeah, along with Georgia, I didn't study sport when I was at university, but I've ended up in a sporting career. So there's lots of different ways that people can get around about not having to obviously work in sport as the end goal. You can do absolutely anything you want, but maintaining your activity, your passion, your hobbies, and giving something else a go. I mean, that's what's so amazing about student sport, is the variety on offer. So I've not yet given underwater hockey a go, but it's definitely up there with one of the niche ones that one of the universities or some universities deliver on campus. So yeah, that's niche. So next up is final words. I'm sad to say it's the end of our time together. Time has flown by. I don't know why I'm always so surprised when time flies by. I shouldn't be, but thank you both so much for today. In fact, before I say that, Georgia, final words, but anything that you want us to leave with from your...
Yeah, I suppose.
No pressure. Doesn't have to be like life changing.
That's tough, you know. As I say, I could be here for days. Yeah, I think for me, just, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Just get involved. Get involved in everything you can. You know, do your bit. If you're involved in student sport, just do your bit and make it a better place for all. And, you know, we should all have that at the core of what we're up to. But yeah, I think as I said earlier, you know, that whole, you can't be what you can't see, all that, like that is just, for me, encompasses everything that we're trying to achieve. And as I go back to governing body land, that's what I keep under my hat, and Eilidh does the same. Laura will do the same within her local community and what she's up to as a student. So yeah, just keep doing it. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep smashing it. Keep being inspiring. We love to hear about everything that you guys as students are up to, and all the student sport staff that I still keep in touch with. You know, it's an amazing space to be in, and you know, student sports it's just an incredible thing. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing.
Love that. Laura, final words, if you have any for us.
For sure. No, I think that when like women and girls to have like that confidence to speak out, because you need to have your voices heard. There's so many things that need changed, and if you think something should be done about it, speak to someone about it, because that's how things are going to get impacted, and everyone's out there to listen to you and wanting to help.
Absolutely, we're a very ambitious bunch in the sports sector. So yes, we always want to be better, always want to improve. So if we can do anything to help, please let us know. Thank you both. It's never a chore to catch up with either of you. Always a pleasure. And this is just the start for us, isn't it? We're still just, you know, at the very early stages of work, and we're super excited to keep this ball rolling. Please give us a shout if you have any questions. The competition never ends. Give us a little tag on Twitter or Instagram at ScotchDoSport, or Facebook, even any social media. Get us on there, and obviously use the hashtag #SheCanSheWill to make sure that your content is part of the wider piece of work going on this week. And even just go and give that hashtag a little look on social media. There's amazing stuff being shared on there, amazing content, inspirational opportunities as well. But thank you both. We're going to leave it there, and we can't wait to catch up with you all next time. So for now, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.